And indeed, those are games that you can watch live on DSTV, which proudly brings you NTV Sport Nights. Tonight, we host Keith Reynolds, a South African ultra-marathoner, fresh from finishing the 42-kilometer Tusker Light Rwenzori Marathon in Kasese. And like Andrew, he's here physically. In the studio, he has completed ultra-marathons, which are 50 kilometers and the Comrades Marathon in South Africa. You'll definitely be telling us about all that. Thank you for joining us today on the show. Let me start by asking, what drives you? I mean, it sounds insane to do all these. You have done, how many have you done altogether?
240 marathons or longer. And when we say marathon,
42 kilometers.
You know, we have the MTN marathon here, and people go run 5 or 10 kilometers. We're talking 42.2 kilometers and beyond.
Oh. You have done over 200.
That's correct. Yes.
Over 200 in a space of how many years?
I started 1987 was my first one.
87.
And so probably before some people in the panel were born.
6 years ago, so that's an average of how many marathons per year?
I mean, it isn't that fast, about 8.
About
A year.
8 overall.
Yeah, per year.
Yeah, but what drives you, you know, because it seems very grueling. I mean, 42 kilometers?
Well, it's actually easy. When I was growing up and went to school, in junior school, I would run 100 meters, 200 meters, and I would be right at the back. And over time, I realized the further the race was, the better I would perform. I wouldn't be last. I would be maybe second last or third last, something like that. So I really enjoyed the longer distance. People would say we're meeting somewhere as the families, or we get together somewhere 10 kilometers away. I was probably 10 years old, and I said, okay, I'll see you there. So from very young already. And then we're watching television one weekend, and all these people looking television, what's happening here? And what's this show? And they said, well, this is the Comrades Marathon. And I said, when I'm big, I'm going to run that. And that just became something. It was a lifestyle. I kept on running all the years. It was my goal. In fact, I was 17 years old. I entered my very first ever marathon.
As a 17-year-old?
I didn't finish it. 2 years later, I finished my first one. That was 1987. 2 weeks later, I did 64 kilometers. 2 weeks after that, 56. Then I had about 6 weeks break, kind of training in between, and then I did my first Comrades that year.
Tell us about the Comrades, because that is astonishing. I mean, I think it is astonishing.
So Comrades, if you remember what it was, the origins of Comrades is that Vic Clapham came out of the First World War, and he says if he survives this race, he's going to do something of monumental proportions to show and reflect how hard it was out there in the war, and that they never forget. Now that was over, it's 101 years ago now, or 102 years ago now, when he did this. And he set up the Comrades Marathon. It was a race between Pietermaritzburg and Durban, and you ran about 90 kilometers. And this was the test of the human spirit, and to show people that you can actually survive, you can do these things. And that sort of embraces and captures many things in life. Overcoming obstacles. They say if you run Comrades Marathon, you'll never be the same person again. And that is so true.
Yeah.
90 kilometers.
About you've talked of since 1987.
Yes.
What explains your longevity, and any special diet or special stuff you do to keep you running for that long?
Don't follow the way I do it, follow the way I tell you. Okay. So basically you should eat healthy. You're not going to overeat. If you eat too much, obviously you're going to gain weight. And in running, when you are carrying more weight, you will go slower. It's two factors. Your lung capacity you can only increase by 15%, and your weight is the other thing. So if your engine is weak and it is carrying a lot of weight, it will go slow. You'll go look at a truck, they are slow. But a race car is light, it is fast. So the lighter you are, the faster you will go.
Over the years, has science advised you otherwise? Because you've just given us a glimpse of what you do, what you've been doing over the years, and what you do on average in a year. Did there come a time where you were advised to probably not do what you're doing, or to regulate what you are doing? And did you consider that advice, or you just followed your spirit?
So I follow my spirit mostly. And what I've said all the years, if you want to run something like 90 kilometers or 50 or 42, train that amount in your week. So if you want to run MTN Marathon, for example, start small, build slowly, add 10% a week, and then get up to 42 kilometers every week in training. Then you can finish 42. If you want to come run Source of the Nile 50 kilometers, train 50 kilometers. If you want to run Comrades, train about 70. You don't have to do 90, and you'll finish. Then if you want to do better, obviously then you have to go into the other elements like a bit of speed training, a bit of tempo work where you work a little bit harder, and then you can improve your speed.
And how many countries have you been to doing this?
I've basically been where I've done work. So I ran Kilimanjaro, I've run up in Dubai, I've run in Qatar, I've run in Saudi Arabia. So wherever I've traveled. A lot of races in Uganda. I've been very involved with races in Uganda. I was my last trip here was 3.5 years, so I got to do just about all the races in Uganda in the time. Then Tebe Marathon, Run the Rift, now the Tusker Light this year. It just happens that Tusker Light was advertised 1 week before the race that I intended to come and do, which is the Source of the Nile 50. So it tied up very nicely, and I thought, well, while I'm here, why come all the way here, do both.
Have you done any of those international marathons? The Berlin is coming up, then New York,
No.
London, and no.
So those are known as the majors: London, New York, the Berlin. So no, I haven't done those. They're very far to travel, and yeah, if I happen to be there, I'll run. For 1 year, I ended up in Cyprus, and just per chance they had a race on that week. It was the public holiday, National Day, so I went and ran that because I was there.
Going back to Kasese over the weekend, what was the experience like?
It was the first thing. I totally agree with Andrew. It was hot. So we started. The temperature was just above 20 degrees at 6:40 in the morning, and we headed out all the way to the equator. Now, geographically, the equator is the center of the Earth. It's going to be the hottest. By 2.5 hours into the race, the temperature was above 30. I finished in. And maybe some advice to Andrew: run faster, you get out of the heat quicker. So I finished in 3:34, and by that time the temperature was already 33. We went out to the national park afterwards to do some sightseeing, and that was about 7 hours after the start, and people were still coming in. And by then the temperature was even higher, and that was really tough. It made the race tough. Coming back from the equator, it felt like you were going uphill all the time. There was a few downhills, but it was really tough going out there.
Okay, I don't know if we still have Andrew on the line and can bring him in at the moment to ask if he has any question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Keith, for honoring our invite. And I'll tell you, I wanted to run faster away from the equator, but the legs were not allowing. I really wanted to. And that was my very first marathon. Now, something people in the studio do not know, and perhaps you, Keith, as well. I silently wanted to use this marathon to qualify for the Comrades. Qualifying for the Comrades is 4 hours, 49 minutes, and 59 seconds. In the last 3 kilometers, I was racing against the clock. As I was approaching the finish line, I saw the clock reading 4 hours and 50 minutes. So I arrived at 4 hours, 50 minutes and 46 seconds. I was late by a minute. What advice do you give me, who is trying to qualify for the marathon, and I missed by seconds? And then also, I'd love to know, Activate Uganda, you're wearing a shirt of Activate Uganda.
Yes.
What's your relationship with Activate Uganda? So those are two. My heartbreak at not qualifying. Remember, I started running in April this year. Right. So am I rushing it, or I can still do it?
Okay, so the advice is when you start running, you're going to improve your running by 10% per week, not more. If you go faster, you haven't built enough, you haven't made the body strong enough yet. So take your time to build up. It can take you 3 months, it can take you 6 months. Slowly build up, and then you add that 10% every week. 10% in effort or speed, okay, or distance, not more. If you do too much, you'll break down sooner, and you will find you get problems when you try to do longer distances. you want to introduce, once you've set a good base, you want to introduce a little bit of speed work or a bit of tempo running in the week, some shorter distances faster, then that will turn out to be better for you in the longer runs later. So if you're now, for example, running 6 minutes on a kilometer, and for 5 kilometers, 30 minutes, right? And now you can reduce that by 2 minutes. By the time you get to a marathon, that's like 20 minutes, and your time comes down. And what a lot of people do, they try to go out and they want to improve by 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Just go look for 1 second every kilometer. It's already a better time. And then you continue. So maybe the best advice is go run when it's cooler, because that one was really hot. And it will bite you in the end. It will slow you down. But things like Standard Chartered, very popular, a fast route. We have the MTN Marathon here in Uganda. That is also quite quick, and it's not too hot at that time of the year. So
you seem to enjoy the MTN Marathon. It's like the 5th time you're talking about it.
Well, I've done 3 of them, and I always wanted to. I've traveled in and out of Uganda over the years, and very often I would come here and I'd miss it by a week. I was a week too late or a week too early. The one time I went in for an operation, and my instruction from the doctor was wait 6 weeks. And at 5 weeks, I was sitting watching the marathon going, I wish I could do this. But I did come back. I ran my 102nd standard marathon, my 103rd standard marathon, and my 104th standard marathon, all wearing those exact race numbers on the MTN Marathon. And it was always close to me over the years, and that was the only marathon around in Uganda at the time. Since then, obviously, just to answer Andrew's question about what is my involvement with Activate, I've known the owner of Activate, Alex, for many, many years. He was one of the first people I met in Uganda, probably going back to, I think it was 2007. And I've watched him grow and get involved in getting people. So Activate Uganda, the name of the company, is about getting people off the chair and active. You know, you can go walk, just get out there and walk. Go do something. It is for your own health. It's for your own benefit. So the whole drive behind the company and the objective of Activate Uganda is activate the Ugandans. Get them going, get them doing something. And there's an event every month. There's things like you do minimum 3Ks every day for 100 days. Sounds crazy, I know, but there's some of us that have been going since the 1st of January 2020. We never missed a day since.
You talked of cancer and recovery and, of course, running. How do you relate the two? Maybe expand more on it.
So I think what happens with running, once you get fit, obviously, the first phase is very difficult, but it gives you something to aim at in life. And if you find, I know people get very busy, they get very stressed at work, you take that time out in the morning, you go do your run, it can be an easy run, it just gives you time to think. By the time you come back, your day is easy because you've planned, you've had time. It's not like you jump into work and immediately there's stress and pressure and things like that. Talking to the cancer thing, I was diagnosed with cancer on the 31st of May this year. And it was something, you know, it's in the back of your mind. My father had cancer, the same type of cancer, prostate cancer. And I think it's important. The biggest fear of that is you don't know you have it. And if you're not testing properly for it, they do a thing called the PSA test, prostate-specific antigen. They look for it in the blood. It's a very simple test, and you can find out before it's too late. I was very, very lucky. They discovered they discovered I had a count of 31 times above the normal. 10 times above the normal. The score was 31. They recommended I go for a certain procedure, and afterwards they said, you know, if you didn't come now, you wouldn't have been here in 5 years' time. Wow. So my advice to the people, especially the men, go test. From 40 years onwards, make sure you do that test. You won't know you've got it until the test tells you have it. And then you can do something.
Did running have anything to do with your health, like improving?
Definitely not on a negative side. Because I was healthy, when I went in for the procedure, it was very simple. I recovered within 3 weeks. I'm here 7 weeks later. I've run a marathon and came in, 41st position in a very decent time.
Yeah, but by the way, I'm one of those people internally who thought, or who were starting to think that Andrew is crazy until today when I've met you. But also, Isma will tell you, and a few of our colleagues at Daily Monitor, that like you've elaborated, you just start out until you eventually get better, get addicted, then you start aiming at goals. When Andrew started out, it looked like a casual daily thing to get fit.
Some kind of
And
joke.
the more he got passionate about it, and the more he talked about it often, the more we made fun about it. All of us, Isma will tell you. When we looked at his time over 4 hours and 50 minutes, in my mind I'm like, that is the time Eliud Kipchoge does for 2 marathons. And I think when we came here I also mentioned it. Andrew ran the time of 2 marathons in 1 marathon.
You made fun
but
of
then
him.
when Andrew mentioned that he was trying to qualify for
The Comrades.
for the Comrades,
Yeah.
and looking at the time that you need to qualify for the Comrades, actually you look at his time of 4 hours and 50 minutes and it's actually making sense. And now I'm feeling sad that he actually did qualify for the
I'm also
Comrades,
feeling
and
sad for him,
hopefully
true.
next year he does. And from now on, I think, Andrew, I'm going to be one of your biggest cheerleaders to make sure that hopefully I get the courage to join you, and maybe next year you get the opportunity to qualify for the Comrades. And I wish you all the best of luck.
So I think there's one thing that
Thank you, Clay. We have the Standard Chartered marathon in October, and then Kilimanjaro, I think, in February, January. Those 2 are used for qualifying, so it's not all over. We still have some more to qualify.
and you can laugh at Andrew, but he's got 2 medals you don't have.
By the That's another one.
Andrew has
Because
so
you
many
needed to finish the marathon to qualify
You need
get
to
a medal.
finish. And Andrew's actually lucky. It's now 4 hours 50. When I first started running Comrades, you had to qualify in 4 hours 30, and if you wanted to do the other big race in South Africa, the 2 Oceans Marathon, you had to complete a marathon in 4:15, which is just over 6 minutes a kilometer. So it's a little bit easier now, but it doesn't make it easy.
Well, tell us more about the source of the Nile. It's a 50-kilometer run,
Yes.
and there's something special about it for you.
Yes. So in, let's go back, about 2016, I think was the first year, I went to the source of the Nile. I was in country, and it was a 12.5 and a 25-kilometer event. And I remember going around one specific point where the river is right next to you here, and it had been raining the night before, so you were holding on to trees and grass to make sure you didn't fall in the river, and you had to do it twice. And I said to the organizer, Alex, I said to him, this was crazy. Next year I'm doing the 12. I'm doing the half. This was just really tough. It was hard. And for some stupid reason, he decided to put a 50-kilometer the next year. And I went, okay, I'm there. So since the very first one, I've run every single one since. And in the very first year, I happened to be 50 years old that year. And the race number sequence started for the 12 kilometers with the 12, the 25 with the 25, and the 50 he started with number 50-50. And he said, you're 50 years this year, it's 50 kilometers, there's your number.
50-50.
50-50. Now what happens is, just before Comrades, he asked me to, I helped him organize some race numbers for the race that Andrew did, the Great Escarpment Run. And I went back and he said, well, pick a number and pick a distance, which one you want to do. So I thought, let me go check. And I went back on my logs and I counted how many times I've run 50 kilometers in my life. And at the time it was 48. So I went, well, okay, after Comrades, let me do 50. Then when I come here, I can do my 50th time at 50 kilometers with my race number 50-50. And that is my race number for on that race. Nobody will ever have it. It's mine.
For how much longer do you hope to do this?
I will run until I can't qualify Comrades, and then I will stop Comrades but still continue.
Maybe you can tell the audience how old you are.
Currently I'm 56.
56.
Yeah.
And you've been running for 30 years.
A little bit more than that, yeah, since 1985.
32 years.
Yeah, my first half marathon was 1985.
And has it been financially rewarding? Because I think that's also another issue. How do you balance all your other commitments, and air tickets, cost money and all that? So
I think the best payout I ever got was about $150, and that was when I broke a record on a race, 12 hours running around 1 kilometer the whole day. I moved the record from 117 to 119.5 kilometers, and that was my total prize money for the day. So no, it's not really financial beneficial. If you get to the Kipchoge's level and those kind of people, Cheptegei, they've got the money, yes. But to run kind of socially in a way, but a good social runner, yeah, you cover your entry fee.
Okay, I don't know if you guys saw, there was a tweet over the weekend, a Nigerian who had been to Rwanda and Kenya, and he was talking about the dust and potholes, and many Ugandans were up in arms that, you know, he had such a bad view of Uganda. But I must say, you must love Uganda, because in spite of everything, you still keep coming at your own cost, and you don't win anything. Okay, I don't mean it in a bad way, but, you know, it's not financially reward. No one refunds your air ticket.
No, so as I said, I've been part of building. There's teams here in Kampala, even at Kampala Club called the Fast and Furious. I was there when they started. We would advise people just from experience, and even to this day the people will come back and say thank you for helping out at that. And so it's kind of like you're part of the development. As much as Activator's been, I've been involved right there in the core of it, and we've seen people come and join the Activate challenges and the other races around and grow, and they're not the same people today. They've moved ahead. There's people that have gone from running into other things like mountain climbing, and they've done very well internationally, but it all started with maybe the 3 kilometer here or a 5 kilometer there. So the running community in Uganda has been very close to me. And whenever I can come, I will be back just to be part of that again.
Okay, and not to put people off entirely, you don't only run, you also race walk.
Yeah,
a little. So something you started doing, you said at 40.
Yeah.
But do tell, okay, for the people who can't run, because I don't think I can really run, but I think I can walk.
You can jog.
I can jog or cycle. I usually get, I don't know what it is, maybe because I'm so unfit, you know, you just feel like your skin is, you want to
so you go back the
scratch
following day until the
yeah,
muscles
but
build up.
I can cycle. But tell us the how people can walk and how people can be involved in race walking.
Look, the easiest thing for somebody who hasn't run or walked, start with maybe 15 minutes. You walk out 7.5 minutes, you come back. Then you get comfortable walking, then you're not itching and you're not so bad. Then you can increase to say, okay, let me get to 20 minutes walking, then maybe 30 minutes. Then you're going to walk for 10 minutes and try start to jog. And then come back the 10 minutes. But remember, and I've seen it here, a lot of people go, I must run, so they go run 5 kilometers, but then they forget they got to come home still. Luckily the borders are cheap, so it's easy.
You jump on a judge and
but start small, start realistic, maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes, and then from there start with just a walk. You don't have to go run on the first day, and then you slowly build up, and you add a minute here, a minute there, 5 minutes here, just progressive. Like I said, not more than 10% per week. So if you're doing only 5 kilometers this week, next week you do 5.5. The week after you do 6.1, and slow, so you move up.
Okay.
And then your body gets used to it. You don't do damage, because some people overdo it in the beginning and they hurt themselves and then they can't continue. And then they go, it's not for me. But just start slowly, progressively, and before you know it, you're doing MTN 5 kilometer, MTN 10 kilometer, or the Cancer Run, or something like that that's local. Kabaka's Run, and then you go from there.
Okay, so as we conclude, what would your final words be to inspire a whole generation of young people, of old people?
I think the best thing is start now while you're young. Don't wait until it's too late and then you feel like you can't. Do it when you're young. Make it a habit while you're young, so that you have the healthy lifestyle, and then you take that lifestyle forward. Because the later you leave it, the longer it takes to get used to it, and the harder it is to get going. And I know, for example, my mother she's 81 years old. She has done, there's a 5 kilometer thing called a park run. It's an international thing. She did her 250th park run a week ago. And she says her biggest regret in life is she only started at 73 years old.
Oh. And she has already done 250.
And she's done 250, yes.
Wow. At 81.
There you go.
Yeah, I got better run, but I do some bit of walking when I'm at my home there from Gaza.
It's a start. You start small.
Of course, I walk from Gaza.
I think we need a challenge on the show, and Andrew needs to keep us in check, and Andrew, you need to keep us accountable while we're still young. But that's very impressive at 81. Yeah, so we will be taking a short break right now, but here is our 256 roundup.